What's up, everybody? Welcome to the R Lounge. Am I the a-hole for refusing to see other options for a girl and pressing charges for what she did to my son's car? My 39 male son, 17 male, Bryce, dated our neighbor Lena, 17 female, for a year. They broke up mid-January for reasons I don't know. I won't sugarcoat this. I never liked Lena. She always seemed a little unhinged, controlling, and aggressive. She's always demanding Bryce's attention, and there were quite a few times when she showed up on our house out of nowhere, whether it was 7 a.m. or 11 p.m., because Bryce wasn't answering his phone, screaming and calling him a cheater when it wasn't like that. The thought of our son getting abused by his girlfriend made us worried so much. My wife and I tried to talk him out of that relationship. We said how that it wasn't normal or healthy. We didn't want to force the breakup because we feared Lena would lash out to him, so we tried to do it in a sneaky way. We don't know if it worked, but they ended up breaking up. He said that after he broke up with her, Lena didn't contact him, which was weird because he expected her to go nuts, but I told him that if fate didn't give him crap, he better not tease it. Now the problem is that we bought my son a car for Christmas. Nothing fancy, but enough to get him to school, his job, and eventually college. He parks it in our driveway outside our home. Ever since the month began, we had been finding scratches all over the car. We know Lena was doing it, but since it was minimal, my son decided to not do anything, even if we could prove that it was her. We have CCTV. Still, something smelled bad for me, so I decided to switch one of the cameras facing his car directly, just in case. Well, 2 weeks ago, we got up and we found my son's car covered in a lot of crap. Paint, glue, feathers, confetti. The door handles were wrecked. Flat tires, paint all over the windows. You get the picture. Bryce and my wife were so distraught. We called the police and I handed them the CCTV that showed Lena and her brother, 23 male, destroying my son's car. We pressed charges and needless to say, Lena's brother went straight to jail. But since he's still a minor, her parents want to make a deal, but I refused. I don't think she should get a way out. Before the police was here, she was laughing her butt off and she tried to play it cool. If she thought this was funny, then she's old enough to face the consequences. My wife and I want to stand our ground, but said they'll buy my son a better car and put Lena on therapy. But is it enough? Am I the a-hole? The first reaction comes from Gourmet Soups. Not the a-hole. This is the wake-up call she needs. Andrew Louis Moreau chimes in, not the a-hole. If you cave, you're literally teaching Lena that no matter what criminal or sociopathic acts she does in the future, her parents will buy her way out of the trouble. She needs to learn early there are consequences to criminal actions. Apprehensive Net 2687 says, not the a-hole, and tell a lawyer they tried to bribe you. Pretty sure that's illegal. Edit. So apparently it's not bribery. Sorry. Honest mistake. Also, I'm 19, so obviously I'm not a legal expert. I was just saying what I thought on the situation. Jaded Artichoke 8398 says, Lena needs therapy and press charges. Possibly since she is a minor with mental health issues, she may get steered in the right direction. But if you drop this, she gets a free pass and could go worse next time. Physical violence against an object, car, could escalate to physical violence against your son. I wouldn't want to take that chance. Our last opinion comes from Copper Anode. Not the a-hole. You need to stay the course. This girl needs to know her actions have serious consequences. And more than that, I'm happy your son has such supportive parents. On to the next adventure. Am I the a-hole for taking my mother's side over my wife's over childcare and future plans? My wife and I have 3 kids between 2 and 8. I also have 3 other siblings who have kids as well. My parents love being grandparents but are really busy. My mom is currently the president of a fiber arts guild in her local area and travels a lot to shows, conferences, and visits other guilds in their national network. She's also flown around and asked to teach classes even internationally and got a diploma from people who do embroidery for the Queen of England, literally. Growing up, my mother was a stay-at-home mom, but after we grew up, she got really involved with her crafts, and my dad, who was retired, is super supportive and travels with her to see these conferences and was her campaign manager when she went for president. His reasoning is that she supported his career all these years, so now it's his turn to take on the support role, so he travels with her and jokes that he's her secretary now. My mom recently expressed wanting to get her bachelor's degree in this particular field, and the course is only taught in the UK. We are in another part of Europe. So my dad and mom want to move to London for 3 years using the money they got from downsizing the family home. My siblings and I are a bit disappointed that we won't have our parents around as much, but we also understand how much our mom has given up to raise us and how much she loves her crafts. The problem for my wife and I is that my parents were a huge source of childcare for us during the times they were free. Her parents live in a different country, and so they can't be as involved as they like. My nieces and nephews have another set of grandparents who are hands-on. My wife feels that it's unfair of my parents to move to London like this when our kids are young and need their grandparents the most for a degree that my mom doesn't need to use because she already teaches classes and is president of a guild, so getting a bachelor's won't actually help in any way, and my parents are just draining the money they got from the sale of our family home. She expressed this to my mom last Saturday over dinner, and my mom is now hurt and wavering on her decision. My siblings are furious at my wife, and we ended up leaving the dinner because while things didn't turn into a shouting match, my wife was basically told she had no say in this because it wasn't her mom and she wasn't family. I thought that was a harsh thing to say to my wife, but I also think our issue shouldn't be factored in my mom pursuing her dreams. My wife basically told her that being a grandmother should be the most important thing in her life. Now, my wife is angry with me for not backing her up when my siblings told her to butt out and for agreeing that my parents should go to London for 3 years even though it's going to make things harder for us. Am I the a-hole? The first opinion comes from BellBell28. Not the a-hole. Your wife is really entitled. Grandparents are great if they can provide childcare, but they shouldn't be made to feel guilty for enjoying their own life. Getting childcare is you and your wife's responsibility, not your parents. Your mom deserves to do whatever makes her happy to, without the guilt. Our next opinion is from Good Girls Grace. She's being incredibly selfish. They're not entitled to free childcare from grandparents who have their own lives. Good on OP for taking his mom's side. Not the a-hole, OP. Your wife is being an entitled a-hole, though. The problem for my wife and I is that my parents were a huge source of childcare for us during the times they were free. That's a favor, not something they owe you. It's up to the parents to arrange adequate childcare for their kids, not grandparents. My wife feels that it's unfair of my parents to move to London like this when our kids are young and need their grandparents the most. It's not unfair. They have their own lives, and they've spent much of it raising you and your siblings. It's time they can spend it how they want. Your kids are your responsibility. They need you most, not their grandparents. Grandparents are a luxury. For a degree that my mom doesn't need to use. So what? She wants it. Your wife has no say. Getting a bachelor's won't actually help in any way, and my parents are just draining the money they got from the sale of our family home. This is incredibly entitled. It's their money, and your wife cannot dictate how they use it. If getting a bachelor's means so much to your mother, it's clearly worth it. Wifey needs to stop being dismissive of her mother-in-law's plans. My wife basically told her that being a grandmother should be the most important thing in her life. No, it's not. Not when she's expecting her mother-in-law to drop everything for it. This is so outdated. One more opinion from Otherwise Window. Not the a-hole. Your wife gets no say in this. Neither do you or your siblings. Your mother makes her own choices. Children don't need their grandparents. Grandparents are a luxury. Your wife is just mad about losing access to all the free child care. On to the next adventure. Am I the a-hole for insisting my boyfriend eat respectfully at a nice restaurant? So, my boyfriend, 20 male, L, and I, 20 female, have been dating for 7 months. We usually eat takeout if we want to get something to eat. However, I recently was promoted, so we went to eat at a very nice Italian restaurant to celebrate, like one with an enforced dress code. My boyfriend is not the nicest of eaters, which can be kind of gross, but I deal with it. However, I didn't realize he had no table manners. At the restaurant, after we were served our first appetizer, a beautifully plated bruschetta dish, L looked at me and jokingly asked me if I would get upset if he enjoyed his meal the same way he would at home. I told him that we were at a nice restaurant and there were other customers around. He didn't say anything, but instead started digging into the bruschetta with his hands, ignoring the serving fork, getting sauce all over his fingers. I let this go. However, when the pasta came out, he smirked at me and ate like he hadn't eaten in a week. He dropped his fork and started picking up pieces of chicken and noodles with his fingers, getting sauce everywhere. The tablecloth, his hands, his clothes, and face. He didn't miss the opportunity to loudly burp after he had finished destroying his side of the table. The table next to us was astonished. My waiter even asked him if he was okay. Other customers were staring. He also put his feet up on the chair next to us, blocking the aisle. I had no idea what to do. I didn't want to make even more of a scene, so I just asked for the check, which I paid, and left really embarrassed. On the way home, I told him how embarrassed I was, and he just said that it was my fault for not letting him enjoy the meal as he pleased, and that since we were paying customers, the other guests had no business judging us. Am I the a-hole? First response from St. Albus. Not the a-hole. He smirked at you. Dude knows exactly what he was doing, and took pleasure in publicly embarrassing you. Auntie Emma chimes in, this here, OP, a man who enjoys humiliating you is going to escalate and abusing you, and quickly too. He just told you who he is. Dump him and bail, like any sane person would. Edit. Book suggestion? Lundy, why does he do that? Another opinion from Sleepy Felines. Not the a-hole. Your boyfriend behaved like a toddler. The fact that he smirked before doing it suggests he knew exactly what he was doing and that he was trying to embarrass you. One more thought from username 52 before moving on. Not the a-hole. This isn't like he used the wrong fork or made a bit of a mess failing with oysters or lobster. He was intentionally being disgusting because he wanted to make a statement. I'm too cool for a fancy restaurant. On to the next story. Am I the a-hole for walking out of the restaurant after my boyfriend started drinking his juice with 3 straws? Might seem like not a huge deal, but here's some context. I, female, 30, have been with my boyfriend, male, 32, for a few months. Unlike him, I come from a well-off background, and last week I invited him out on an upscale restaurant for dinner together. We got there, sat down at our table, and chatted for some time. He ordered some orange juice and then asked the waitress to bring him 2 more straws besides the one he had with his juice. I was puzzled. I asked if he was expecting one of his friends, and he laughed and said, "Oh no, not after what they did to me last night." I was like, what? But watched to see what he was doing. The waitress came back with the 2 straws, then took our orders. The minute she walked away, my boyfriend put the other 2 straws in his juice and basically started sipping with the 3 straws, making an unbelievably absurd and annoying sound. I was floored. I asked what he was doing and why. He nonchalantly smiled and said so he could drink faster. I got mad and quite embarrassed because people were literally side-eyeing me since I'm a regular. I told him to stop, but he didn't. I said that I'd leave if he wouldn't, and he made eye contact and kept sipping. I had it. I said I wasn't going to continue to be humiliated any longer, and grabbed my stuff and made my way out. He shouted for me to wait, but I didn't. 30 minutes later, he started rage texting me about how I overreacted and how I kept ruining good times worrying about what those snobs think. Then talked about how ridiculous I was to walk out like that, and repeatedly texted about how I should stop being a pretentious snob just because I hang around them, which I found really offensive. He expected me to apologize for making a scene and walking out like that was over something so stupid and harmless. One quick thought from Administration This, 77. Not the a-hole. What he was doing was obnoxious and you asked him to stop. He refused. You told him what the consequences would be if he continued, and he apparently accepted them until you followed through. Dump him and find an adult to date. One more adventure. Am I the a-hole for not letting my homeless brother live with me? I'm adopted. My brother and sister are the bio kids. I had some issues in my teenage years and wasn't the perfect kid, but brother was a bit wild too. However, since I'm the adopted one, my siblings have always given me extra crap for my failings. A few years ago, Dad got sick, so I moved home to help him and Mom out. I contributed to bills, took care of Dad, took care of the dogs, cooked every day, cleaned and worked full-time myself, and just really tried to be as helpful as possible. I even offered to pay rent, but my mom said no. Cue to me having a car accident going to pick up Dad's meds, and Dad and Mom buying me a used car so I could keep taking Dad to appointments, and as a thank you for all the help. Well, my siblings came for that Christmas, heard about the car and freaked out. They said I didn't deserve anything and that I was using Mom and Dad. My brother cornered me and said as soon as Dad died, I had a month to move out and stop leeching off Mom or else. Dad passed shortly after that Xmas and I began planning my move, and Mom was really upset. She kept pushing me to stay, but in the back of my head, I had my brother's threat and just didn't feel comfortable staying. I ended up getting a place just up the street so I could still help her. After I moved, I ended up getting really lucky financially. I was within a year of renting, able to buy a house near Mom, and have been doing well for myself. Last year, my mom's sister, who was also recently widowed, came to live with her, and brought her 2 grandkids she is the guardian of, so my mom's house is full and she's happy. I help out and watch the kids a lot and still do most of the house maintaining stuff, so I'm over a lot. On one of my visits, my mom and aunt were discussing what to do because my brother needed to move home since his wife kicked him out. I offered to get the kids bunk beds and help move them into one room, and my mom was very grateful. A week later, my brother called asking if he could just live with me since he didn't want to share a house with 2 kids. I have a spare room, but I don't want to live with him. He's treated me like crap for 10 plus years at this point and never has a nice thing to say behind my back, usually from my teenage years when I was struggling. He is vocal about not considering me family. He's said he doesn't want me at our mother's funeral or in her will. I don't want anything from her and never ask for anything. She just offers things sometimes. The animosity is palpable. I would offer to take in one of the kids, but they are young and need to be with their caretaker, so I think he just needs to suck it up and stay at my mom's. My mom knows how he is to me and would never ask me to take him in, but my aunt is confused why I wouldn't offer that, as it makes sense. and another person in my mom's house would make it cramped. Some friends are saying after all my mom has done for me, I should suck it up and let her son, my brother, stay with me, but I really don't want to. Does that make me an a-hole? First response from Bond Fool. Not the a-hole. He's incredibly cruel to you. Time for him to reap what he sowed. Our last thought from Ally Emmy. Tell your aunt why you won't let him stay and she will no longer be confused. This seems like a very straightforward not the a-hole situation. You know you aren't. He treats you like crap. And as far as he's concerned, he's not even your family. What do you owe him? He can sleep on a curb.